to provide more value to you guys. Would that work?
Yes, dear. Sure.
Cool. So bring it on. Whatever doubts you might have, let's
Okay,
start tackling them.
so we'll start directly from audience.
From audience.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, guys, you can start asking questions in the Q&A, which you can find in the bottom bar.
Sharan, I see your hand raised.
Yes, just a minute. Guys, Q&A is now open. You can ask questions.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, bro.
Sir, I'm a sophomore from Computer Science and Engineering. Sir, I had a doubt. Sir, I'm currently a pupil at Code Forces, which is like I'm doing Code Forces for quite a while now, but I'm like not seeing the improvement as such. Sir, so can you give some tips to how to increase the rating, because the effort is more, but the results are not as I'm expecting. So
Uh, Gotcha. So if you're already putting in the required efforts, I'm assuming you'll be solving the problems and you also would be solving the contest, right? And still, if you're not seeing the result, it could be likely because you're not solving the right problems. It is possible that you're solving the problems related to a single concept, or you're solving problems that are way hard for you. So you're just going through editorials and just mugging up the solutions. In return, you're not actually gaining the knowledge required so as to grow in that range. Now, the range you're talking about, the pupil range, that doesn't even require any advanced data structures or even medium level data structures. It just requires ad hoc knowledge. So if you're unable to level up over that, the problem is the way you think about the solutions. So ideally, I don't want to promote my own ladders here, but that's the best in the market right now. So if you want, you can just go through the ladders and try solving problems that are above like a plus 200 your range. So let's say your current rating is 1200. So try solving problems that are of 1400 or 1500. And whenever you're stuck on a problem, don't directly see the editorials. If you're stuck, firstly see the topics that the problem is coming from. So there are always tags that are given alongside a problem. Try to go through them. If still it's not making much sense to you, go to the editorial, but don't directly jump to the final solution. Start with the hints. So hint one, what's that? Hint two, and so on and so forth. The idea is that at every iteration, you try to bring on some of the work to your brain itself. It's not like you're getting a spoon-fed solution to you, because that way you won't be learning much, right? So you have to make your brain work as much as possible. And one way is not to give it a direct solution, but give it solutions in parts. And it's highly likely that you will be able to come up with the solution if you're given the right direction. And once you practice in this particular manner for quite a while, you'll definitely see your rating going up. And please don't solve easy problems. There's no point in solving 800, 900 problems now. Being a pupil, I'd say just solve plus 200 or plus 300. Does that answer your question?
thank you, sir. It is really beneficial. I'll do that, sir. Thank you, sir.
Cool. Sharon, do you want me
Right,
to pick
sir.
up? Yeah,
So
Anusha, sorry. Go
next
ahead.
question from our audience is, how can we manage parallelly academics and CP and DSA for placements?
Okay, so it's three things: academics, DSA, and CP, right? Now, if you
Is
look at it,
only
sorry, go ahead.
DSA is uh, question is only DSA is enough for placements or CP is also essential for it?
I won't say it's essential, but in the kind of competitive environment you are in right now, I don't think giving like keeping things off to chance is a good idea, because the number of opportunities are pretty limited. Now, let's say you got to the interview stages of a particular company, and that is a startup. Let's say it's Zeta. Now, Zeta is famous for asking questions that are not directly being asked from lead code itself, but they are ad hoc, or they are hard enough so that you can compare it to a code forces level. Now, if you sit for the interviews of Zeta and you just fail it because you hadn't done CP, that does not become a really ideal scenario. This might still have this could have worked like 2 years ago when companies were hiring in mass numbers. Over that, you still had a chance that, okay, if not the company A, then company B would be open for you, and that will work out for you pretty well. But given the scenario now, I think you should not be keeping things up to chances or off to chances, and you should ideally be doing CP if you have the time. But DSA is definitely a must. DSA is not something you can skip unless and until you are a very big nerd and you really have the specific knowledge of a tech stack, and you also know a particular company that's solely gonna hire based on the tech stack. If that's not the case, that's a very, very unique case. I'm not saying that would never happen, but it's like a one in thousand kind of a scenario. So if that's not the case, DSA is obviously a must, and doing CP would further increase your chances. And personally saying, from my personal experiences and what I've observed over the past few years, uh, don't let a lot of things to the chances itself. Try to take things in your own control, and CP would definitely help with that.
Thank you, Vijay. So another question is from one of our Q&A. How would you suggest to use ACD ladders for beginners? I'm always stuck even if I had studied the topic. Should I complete the topic and then start solving? Like,
So ACT ladders can auto recommend you problems. You just have to open a codedaily.com, press and enter. There's a search bar over there. Just enter your code forces handle, and it will auto recommend you the problems that you need to solve. Right now, the ideal scenario is the way I said earlier. You can pick up the problem, read the tags, and then go through editorials and stuff. Even if after all of this you still have some doubts, then I do have the Discord server, and it's the biggest Discord server in India. So you would be having the access to that even on the codedaily.com page or on the ACD ladders itself. It's right. It's mentioned there right at the bottom. Just open that up, and we do have a pretty big community. It's around 12,000 members, I guess, and people are really helpful over that. They'll be able to help you out.
the next question is from Satyam. What order should we have for choosing topics for CP?
All right. Now, I won't go into the details of it, but for CP, the very first thing you'll require is actually mathematics. I won't even say it's not something that is too hard. Not even the mathematics you are studying at your bachelor's level, but it's mostly high school level mathematics, basically permutations, combinations, factorials, the very, very noob stuff, right? So you need to do that. After that, you have to start tackling with the easiest part first. So if you're doing it in CPP, just go for STL, right? Once you have control over STL, you already would be able to solve, I'll say, the problem A and B in a contest. After that, you'll have to learn specific algorithms. Basically, you can start with maybe linear search, two pointers, binary search. I do have a sorry, I do have a video on this on my channel itself, wherein I have taught the basics of each of these topics, and that too in a order so that you can learn. But you'll find plenty of resources for this matter. You really not don't need to go through my videos or a particular writer's videos. You can just Google it online, and you'll be able to find the resources. uh, I don't think there's a lack of resources. It's just that there's a lack of dedication amongst the peeps.
Thank you, Vijay. So the next question is, uh, I get demotivated over time when I can't even solve a question in the diff 2. what topics would you suggest me to complete and practice as I'm a beginner?
Dev 2 again does not have any standard algorithms required for it. So it's basically mathematics, the very basics of mathematics, or logical reasoning. I'd say if I ask you like what's odd and what's even, you should have the basic knowledge about that, right? And the problem it would mostly revolve around such concepts, and it's a bit twisted. So it's not as simple as looking at a problem saying it's odd or it's even. It'll be a bit twisted, bit with a bit of a problem statement given, so that people tend to get a bit confused. But it never ever would require any complicated data structures or algorithms. So learn ad hoc problems, or just practice ad hoc problems. You can do it from directly from the problems or from the code ladders, or also from the Code Forces problem set official website, and try to understand. It's not just about looking at a problem, copying the solution, going to this problem. Always try to understand what could be the intuition behind it, right? And that will obviously come with time. So let's say you solve the first five problems. In the first five problems, you might not be able to have that good of a grasp on the intuition required, but with time, as you solve more and more problems, uh, your brain technically starts developing all the neural circuits in that manner that you start understanding. Uh, this is the input, that's the output. How you need to think about it, right? And also, there are certain concepts, even if it's a very common sense thingy, but still, uh, some things would only become obvious with practice. So there's no easy answer to it. There's nothing like I can teach you in a minute or even like in 10 days that will help you solve the problem. It's all about practice, and you'll have to do that.
Yes, sir. So the next question is, how was the journey from Microsoft to Phytra? Like, this,
Is it the how part or the why part? Like, I'm pretty confused right now. Like, how part really isn't making sense, right? Or do you want to know about the work-life balance and culture and stuff?
like the question is like general one. How was your journey? So you can tell your work-life balance or how you upskilled and all. Like what all things you changed.
Good enough. Back in Microsoft, I was on a fresher. I was L60. L60 is like an intermediate state between SD1 and SD2. So I was still getting good projects over that. But one thing's for sure, that a startup would give you far more exposure than a big tech. Microsoft being a big tech, even though if you get even if you get good projects, the ownership would be obviously limited. So that's one aspect. And coming to a startup, you'll obviously have to learn the cutting edge technology, because they are always developing things, breaking things faster and fixing them. So you'll have to learn all of these things in a very fast manner. Uh, this might be great for you, could be bad for you, depending on how you treat work-life balance or how you treat personal growth. Uh, Other than that, for the flexibility part, even at Microsoft, I was working from office for a few months, and then I was working from home. And this is a total remote job. So I had flexibility in both the jobs, so that's not much of a concern. About work-life balance now, Microsoft is actually known for its work-life balance. It's one of the best companies with work-life balance. Whereas the startups obviously won't have that good of a work-life balance. So I don't think that even needs to be mentioned. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, so far so good. I think startups are always great if you really want to focus on your personal growth, and you really aren't really concerned about the work life balance, and you are fine working a bit extra hours. Then startups are a really cool place to work at.
Yes, we. So another question is, how much time should we give to a question before seeing the editorial? Like after a contest, how much time should we give?
It depends. It depends on your level and the level of the problem. Now, I'm a candidate master, and if I am looking at a problem that is 1900 rated, right, so I should be able to solve it. So at max, I'll give it 30 minutes. Let's say I'm looking at a problem, and now the problem rating, I'm specifically coupling it with code forces. It might change if you're looking at problems from CodeShip or AtCoder or any such platform. Now, let's say I'm looking at a problem that is 1600 rated. It should be easy for me. I should be getting the solution in like 5 minutes or 6 minutes. If I'm taking like 15 minutes for it, I'll definitely hit for the editorial, because I probably would have brainstormed all the ideas that might be utilized for that problem, right? Now, the same case won't apply for you. Now, let's say the same person who was asking the doubt earlier, who was around pupil range, around 1200 range, he's trying to solve a 1600 problem. Now, that is 4 plus 400 for him, right? The same problem is minus 300 for me, but it's 400 plus 400 for him. It's fine even if it's taking like 40 minutes or even an hour at times. It's always relative to your problem. But in any case, like in any case, neither would I suggest solving a problem that is, let's say, plus 600 or something, right? And that being said, I think a problem, if you're not able to solve it in an hour, that's the very upper limit. You should hit for the tutorial or for some help.
Yes, yeah. So another participant wants to ask, so I'm giving him access. Okay,
Sure.
you can ask question.
Hello, भैया.
Hi, man.
भैया, now I am in a specialist in CF. मैं भी डीपीआई ग्राफ के क्वेश्चन जब मैं प्रैक्टिस कर रहा हूँ सीएफ में, तब मैं थोड़ा सा रेटिंग में थोड़ा सा 1100 के कुछ क्वेश्चन नहीं हो रहे, या कभी कभी उससे नीचे के क्वेश्चन नहीं होते जब हम थोड़ा सा एडवांस डाटा स्ट्रक्चर को प्रैक्टिस करने जाते हैं, तो उसका क्या सोल्यूशन है?
Advanced data structures में graph वगैरह में you won't be able to find 1100 problems. So how are you practicing 1100 problems for graphs?
नहीं नहीं, जब मैं एडवांस डाटा स्ट्रक्चर जब 1500 के रेटिंग क्वेश्चन या 1600 रेटिंग क्वेश्चन जाते हैं, तब 1100 के कुछ क्वेश्चन नहीं होते.
So most likely you are trying to make it hard for yourself. Like होता क्या है कि if you are looking at a problem, right? और तुम 1500 solve कर रहे हो, तो 1500 problems जो तुम graph की solve कर रहे हो, उसमें जो constructive part है वो बहुत कम होता है. By constructive I mean the ad hoc part, right? It's somewhat straightforward. You just need to know the data structure, the algorithm required, and उसमें correction बनाना थोड़ा easy हो जाता है. Versus a 1100 problem that does not require any special data structure for that matter. ठीक है, उसमें constructive part ज़्यादा होता है. So if you keep practicing graph problems, right, so you tend to lose your grip on constructive problems itself. फिर वो वाली प्रॉब्लम्स जो होती है जो इजी होनी चाहिए तुम्हारे लिए वो हार्ड होने लग जाती है बिकॉज कंस्ट्रक्टिव प्रॉब्लम्स की तुम्हें तुम्हारी ग्रिप चलेगी, राइट? सो इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू बी इन टच इवन विद कंस्ट्रक्टिव प्रॉब्लम्स. ऐसा नहीं है कि रोज सॉल्व करनी है, बट हफ्ते में भी एक दो.
ओके,
कूल ब्रो. Who's next?
So the next question is, in the current scenario with Devin and all making dev easier, what things in dev field alongside consistent CP should we do? What are your career suggestions for college students? Like what they should focus on right now?
Cool. So I do see that Devin is gonna change the scenario. I'm not gonna pretend like it's not going to, because it's definitely going to change the scenario. The point now being that it would just increase the difference between the top 1% developers and the remaining ones. You have to work hard. You have to be that person who's capable enough to think about a solution and then utilize Devin for help, right? Because it's never going to be the scene that a CEO is just going to hire a few Devins, right, and then they'll do the entire work for the CEO. It's always going to be the case that the CEO is going to hire a less number of engineers, and those engineers are always going to use any kind of model or even Devin or ChatGPT or whatever you may call it, right? So they are going to use these models or AI trained machines so as to ease their work. Now your target should ultimately be to become those engineers, right? Because the numbers is definitely going to reduce. पहले 5 engineers चाहिए था, 3 वो काम कर देंगे. So you have to be amongst those 3 engineers. So ideally you should learn problem solving, because at the end of the day, if development is becoming simpler for Devin, the problem solving aspect is the one where you need to focus, right? You have to know that whether a solution exists for this problem or if it's totally impossible. If it's possible, then what's the most optimal way of solving it, right? You have to simplify the task and then provide it to a chatbot like Devin, if I may call it, or AI trained machine like Devin, and that's how it's gonna go like look going forward. So if you are an engineer who's in his bachelor's, or if it's in first or second year, I'll say work hard, be a good problem solver, understand how to use AI efficiently. Don't worry much about it. I'm not saying don't treat it as a threat, but also treat it as an opportunity that can help you if you are amongst the top 1% engineers. I hope that answers the doubt.
Yes, yeah, sure. So
Cool.
next question. How was your interview experience of Phaedra?
It was good. So since the SCD2 post, I did have interviews for DSA as well as for system design. Obviously, there were HR interviews as well. Uh, so for me, I'll just say it, right at that. I'll not try to sugarcoat it. But if you are anywhere above 2300, 2400 on lead code, if you are a candidate master on code forces, then most likely interviews aren't going to be hard for you. Like you can sit in an interview without even preparing for it. A few months back, sat for Google and I just sat without even preparing for it, and it went fine. Right? Interviews are never going to be hard beyond that level. No one's going to be expecting you to be a grandmaster and sit for interviews. So DSA would never be a problem. I did prepare especially for a system design, and the system design interviews were actually taken by ex Google engineers itself. So just a fact over here, like Phaedra is a startup that came out of Google, so the entire core team is itself of Google. So all staff engineers from ex staff engineers from Google were that, and they did really grill me on system design. It was a nice experience, and then after that there were HR interviews. So those are I'll say those are cool. They just try to test you would be performing and how you'll work alongside the entire team. And since I already told them they are a startup that came out of Google, so their interviews are also more or less similar to ones that of Google itself. So yeah, overall, that was a nice experience.
Yes, sir. So the next question is, as you are a candidate master, have you ever tried ICPC?
Cool. So no, the reason being, I started. Uh, that's bad. Anyway, I started doing competitive programming after my college itself while I was in Microsoft. So in the year 2023, I started Code Daily, the server, the YouTube channel, etc. And at the same time, I started my competitive programming journey as well. So no, I've never tried ICMACPC.
Till what rating one should solve above his current rating to increase
Plus
his?
200, plus 200, or at max plus 400. Never go beyond that. Plus 400 is like the very, very above range, or you can call it the maximum threshold, but don't go beyond that.
One is asking, can you explain your code process journey, like how
Cool.
it began
So,
and like?
so before I started Code Forces, I had already solved like more than 1,000 problems on lead code. So I was already comfortable with data structures and algorithm. So as soon as I started Code Forces, I was already there in the specialist expert range, near about 600 rating, right? And then I really started grinding it in the 2023, in January 2023, I'll say. And it then took me around 6 months to reach candidate master. So my journey was mostly around taking up a problem, thinking about it all day if I'm not getting the solution. And I used to work. So at that time, I was also working at Microsoft. So while even I was working, like I was doing my daily jobs, I used to keep thinking about the problem, and whenever it struck, I used to write it, like code it up. And other than that, I was actively helping on the server. So like our server actually has a channel that is dedicated to asking doubts, and over that people do keep posting doubts, right? So since I was helping them, I was getting a list of very curated problems, because if it's hard for them, and obviously it's a problem that probably is a bit out of the box, so I was already getting a list of curated problems to solve from, and that's how I was practicing. So that's the only reason I'll say it just took me like 5 6 months, I guess, to become candidate master.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is, what would you suggest if someone doesn't secure an on-campus internship? What should be the roadmap for them to secure good placements?
Uh, so, uh, so the roadmap firstly consists of two parts. One is actually getting the interview call, and the second is then clearing the interviews. Now, what you'll require for clearing the interviews or even for getting the interview call would depend on the kind of organization it is. Now let's call out the top big notch companies or the MNCs: Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon. They don't actually require any kind of development. They just require a few basic projects on your resume itself. I'm assuming you will be having that by definition of degree itself, because you do have, I guess, a few courses that revolve around projects, right, in your bachelor's. So you will be having those, but you need to have a a good grasp on data structures and algorithms. So work on them, right? The next kind of people would be that are trying to join not these big tech companies, but not also the very niche startups, which requires a mixture of both of these, the development side as well as the DSS side. So do good at both these fronts. Try to make some good projects. Try to exhibit your knowledge that you actually know about what you're talking, like what the company needs. If it's a let's say web development company and it's specifically working on more, learn more. If it's working on main, learn main. Whatever it's working on, work on that. Make a few good projects. Have a good DSA. Now over here, the expectations for your data science algorithm would be a bit lower compared to the top notch, because you're also compensating it with your development, right? So but still have appropriate knowledge of both of them, and then start applying. Now the way you should be applying could be, one is directly go to the job portal and apply over that. The second being that have maintain a good LinkedIn. For that, you can just keep posting your achievements on LinkedIn, and by that fact itself, your connections would start growing. And once you have significant connections, start mailing people or messaging people who are actively hiring, right? And then showcase your skill set. You can showcase it by your lead code profile, your code forces profile, your GitHub profile, whatever things you have created, if there are any hackathons you have won, etc., right? And that's how you get the interview. Now, once you get the interview, you've already done all of these things, so it's easy for you to clear the interviews itself. And yeah, the last like we already discussed two types, the third one being the people who will be going for organization that solely work on a tech stack, and they don't even care about your problem solving capability. Now this is a very niche field, and I'm not going to say like no one goes over here, people do go over here. And if you're really confident that you are going to go in this direction itself, you can start working on your development skills, make some really nice awesome projects, and then yeah, again start mailing people.
Thank you, sir. So, so a participant wants to ask one question. So,
Hello, sir.
Hey man.
I'm a sophomore currently, and so my internship season is going to come. So I have been like practicing DSA CP, currently a pupil. So my question is that in the coming season, how to manage CS fundamentals and all those, like
What do you mean by how to manage?
I haven't studied them currently, and like what is the correct way to approach learning CS fundamentals? And also, I am quite weak in development. So, which tech stacks would you suggest to currently learn?
uh cool. So for most of the CS fundamentals, maybe DBMS, OS, networks, etc., you can just learn the theory part, and that should be good. So it's as simple as opening a book or opening some notes and learning them. For OOPS, however, I would suggest learning the theory part and also trying to implement some of it, so that if sometimes the organization would start grilling you on OOPS concept, okay, what's polymorphism? Try to implement it, right? Show us how overriding is done, and various sort of things, right? So you should not find yourself in that kind of a scenario where you just know the theory part and you have no clue how to implement it in practice. And also learn some examples where these can be used. Uh, Now the other what was the other point we were talking about? CS fundamentals is obviously required, right? What's the other point?
I haven't done much development currently. So, which tech stack would you like suggest me to currently learn or follow right now?
That would depend on the kind of organization you want to go for, right? Now, if it's you're really targeting fang on these top-notch MNCs that don't care much about development, then do it in any tech stack. You can pick Mean, Mern, Android development, Flutter, anything. But then again, if you're trying to go for startups which already have a preference for certain tech stack, then try to excel in that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So the next question is, sir, which CS fundamentals is required when you switch companies? Like, because in college it's only OS, CN, DBMS, and OOPS.
So CS fundamentals isn't going to change, and like based on the interviews I've given, I gave interviews for Amazon, Google, a few HFTs, this Phytra itself, and a few more companies. I was never actually asked CS fundamentals itself, but system design tends to become a bigger preference once you are switching companies, because most likely you're not going to switch for SD1 to SD1, right? You're going to go for either SD2 or even SD3 in some scenarios. So you are expected to know system design, right? And even right now, a few companies have started asking system design even to freshers. So just calling out that it would be better if you can go through system design too in your placement journey.
Yes. So the next question is, like this one personal question type. How was the transition when you left your college and joined the corporate world? Like your routine, life, time management? Because in college, like many things are messed up.
Uh, okay. Obviously, things are messed up, but it doesn't really change much, right? Because even in college, you're expected to wake up in the morning, go to the college, come back by the evening, do a daily course. And the same goes even in the corporate world. You are expected to get up by a certain time, go to the office, get the things done, and by evening, you are again home. A few things that would change would be the sense of responsibility you are going to get, right? And with time, you are obviously going to embrace it and you're going to work well over that. But again, this might change depending on the organization itself. If it's Microsoft, which is a bit lenient with the timings, it's going to be all pretty and good with you. It could be some HFT, which is really stringent with the timing. Then you need to be a more disciplined person, right? But I don't think that it changes by a lot. It's just that the sense of responsibility you start getting, the sense of or even the financial responsibilities you start taking up. So that is where it changes the most. I don't think it really changes your routine by much.
So there's one more question. It says, uh, as he's doing currently DSA and CP mainly, what type of projects he should build for sitting in on-campus opportunities?
Cool. So I think I already answered similar things quite a few times now. But for the specific thing, what I'll say is that if you already so if you already know that you want to sit for FANG, then I don't think you should be really focused on tech stack. But if you really want to do something good at development, then rather than just making a clone of Discord or Google or anything, like just rather than just making a clone, you should focus on making something that at least solves a problem. It could be just for you, for some friend, for your family members, for extended family, or anything. Like if you know someone and if you know a problem and if you know a solution, right? If you can think of a solution that can eventually solve that problem, you should work on that. Because at least after once you're done with the project, it would be helping someone, and it's a really nice thing even to write on the resume that you actually were solving a real world problem rather than making a clone. So if you're able to find such a problem, just solve that.
So the next question is, what is your approach to solve questions when you do not have an initial clue about a problem in an interview?
Cool. So when you are in an interview, the interview is there to help you out, right? He's not there to reject you, but he's there to get you selected. So if you have no clue whatsoever about the problem that has been asked to you, you can politely ask for a hint. You can just let them know that this is the way you're thinking about it, but it's somewhat not making sense to you. It's not really helping you reach to a conclusion, and the interviewer would obviously nudge you in the right direction. right? That's one way. The other could be just explain them your approach and then ask for hints if this approach is fine or if you need to modify it further, right? Just treat your interview like a friend, and they'll obviously help you to navigate the interview itself. The worst thing is thinking that the interview is your enemy and not even asking any help from him. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself.
Next question is, how do you maintain discipline in your life? Uh, Work, gym, coding, like you have also ACD ladders, like how you maintain everything,
Um, I mean,
time
it's
management.
mostly about excuses, right? See, if I gym, it hardly takes 1 hour. It's not, and people would be spending like 5 hours scrolling social media. I don't do that, so that's where I save time, right? When it's about ACD ladders, so ACD ladders is updated like twice or thrice a year. So even if I'm gonna spend 2 days a year, or even like 1 week a year, it doesn't really become that big of a deal, right? I just have to think of a problem like I'm gonna soon update it again, right? I'm just thinking about the algorithm. I have a fine idea, so I'm thinking about the updated algorithm that would populate it. So it's not eating that much of my time. Then I have my entire day with me where I can work on my day job. That's what I'm gonna do, right? And whenever I get a bit of time, I just open Twitter or something of that sort. But I never ever try to waste hours scrolling through social media, and that's how I save time.
So another question is, uh, how much dev knowledge is enough? For example, he says he has learned Monstack and has made some good projects, but he thinks industry standards are much higher than projects we made. Should we try learning? Should we try learning from open source projects, or it is not necessary as a fresher?
Uh, so two different answers here. You can obviously try to learn the industry standards from open source projects. That's one of the best resources you have. But again, it's not that necessary. If you are not joining a very niche startup, they don't really expect you to know the industry standards already. For example, if you join Google or if you join Microsoft, you would be given a time period of 1 to 2 months, wherein you will be understanding what the team actually does. You'll be going through the code base. You'll have all of these you'll have this training. You'll have this time to go through the industry standards and how to start coding things up on your own. So time would be given to you if you're joining a good org. So it's not necessary, but again, it's one of the best things if you can do. If you are interested, definitely go through open source projects, try to understand industry standards, but not a necessity.
So another question is, how should I approach off-campus internships slash placements? Elaborate the process, like how should I ask for referrals and how should I apply? And what is the current market scenario and what kind of interviews can I expect?
Okay. So for the first part, we already talked about having a good LinkedIn, and that would definitely help you to get referrals, right? Another thing is over here, I think CP can help a lot because in development, it's really hard to predict unless and until you have made something really groundbreaking. It's really hard to predict how good of a developer you are because people are just making clones, copying, pasting code and stuff. But let's say you're an expert or even a candidate master or even a master on code forces, that gives some amount of confidence about your technical expertise. So with that, if you ask for a referral from an employee, he probably would be more than happy to give it to you. So that's one way of getting a referral. And the second part, that was about the current market scenario. So the current market scenario has improved. It's not like it's that bad as it was a year ago, but it's still not at the level like at the post-COVID levels. After COVID, companies were hiring in mass numbers. That's no longer the case, right? It's especially even harder for freshers. If people want to join, maybe like senior engineers and stuff, there are still a fine number of vacancies, but that's not the case with junior engineers or SD1s. So it's a bit harder for them. But again, being in the top 1%, I think it's not really going to be hard for you if you can showcase your skills, maybe development or DSA.
Guys, if you have any more questions, you can drop in Q&A, or you can raise your hand so that you can directly speak to sir. One question is, does internship from government organization gives an edge during placements?
I don't think that would make a difference. If it's an internship, right? Internship is all about having worked on something, even in your college days. If it's from a private player or if it's from a government org, it won't make a difference unless and until the private player where you have interned at is pretty big. If it's a fan, it would definitely make a difference. If it's OpenAI or Microsoft, Google, it would make a difference. But again, if you're just interning from a small private organization, right, versus you are interning from some government organization, that really won't make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Pranav sir, for your time and expertise. It's been an extremely informative session, and a big thanks to our audience for joining us today. Stay tuned for more enlightening sessions in the future.
Thanks, guys, for having me. It was a nice session, I guess. I hope I was able to solve all your doubts and whatever questions you had.
Sure.
Thank you.
Cool, guys. Keep coding. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, boy, yeah. So yeah, guys, session has ended. You can like send.